going on, everybody? My name is Steven. You're watching FowlerAirguns channel. It's late at night. I'm out here in the shop. Just out here tinkering, burning some time away as always. And I'm working on some valve stems, and specifically I am working on trying to design and modify my own valve stems as part of my hurdle in manufacturing my first air rifle and building valve assembly entirely. This is just part of the process. For anybody that may not know, the valve stem specifically is literally just a rod with a seal on the end of it that is inside of a casing, which is the valve body, and a spring-driven hammer striker hits the end of this valve here, pushing it in, moving the valve away from a seat, allowing air to escape past it and out of the barrel, etc. Just to kind of cut it short for you, to kind of give you an idea. So what I've actually come across here is I've been kind of scouring a little bit. I'm very novice at this, so this is obviously not a video for you know, the expert or anybody who's been doing this for a long time. This is more a video for anybody that's kind of tinkering around a little bit, kind of getting into it, and just looking for some ideas. So I tried a lot of different materials as far as seating for the valve: carbon fiber, PEEK, nylon, a couple other different things. I got a suggestion to try this material here. This is actually Durlin acetal rod. So this is just a black, this is 3/4 inch outer diameter right here by a foot, roughly a foot. And I just got to say that the reason why I'm just doing this video here is just kind of point out that this is a great material. It is very similar to almost like an aluminum. It is absolutely a little bit stubborn on seating when you're first trying to seat at low PSI. It can be a little stubborn. If you really get your machining done right and you get this thing nice and smooth, it makes a fantastic surface. I mean, as far as you know, the material works just great, guys. That's just kind of what I'm getting to around this video. So just kind of chop it up real quick. I got some of these Durlin rods, and what I've been working on is, so I get myself a piece of steel here, and I just kind of started machining the end of it here, and I just got a little small Harbor Freight mini lathe here. It costs you about $1,000 roughly to get you one. That's with protection plant and everything, which is just something I chose. I believe it was like 800 bucks, somewhere around there. But it's just a very nifty, it's a very handy tool to have. It does work great for very small projects. Able to machine me these valve stems here, and this is kind of what I started with. And so what I got here is take the steel rod and I machine the end of it. And actually what I do here is this is entirely different. This is from a failed attempt here. I had one of my lathe bits actually broke off, kind of destroyed this piece here, so I had to unfortunately start over. But anyway, so I make a lip here. That's the initial seat for the face of the valve here, which I'll kind of explain this here. So then I make another section that goes up here, and I kind of knurl this part here. I wouldn't really call it knurling. I'd say groove this part here to kind of keep it from spinning inside of the Durlin. And I actually do not have the tie. It usually looks something more similar like that, but machined a whole lot prettier. This was something I made months ago. That was just one of my original just kind of failed attempts. So what I found was very interesting. What I'm doing is I'm machining in here, and then what I'm doing is I'm taking a bit and I machine this top, very top end here, smaller than the actual diameter of my actual stem here, the original outer diameter here. And what I do is I machine it down, and I take a piece of Durlin here. I cut a little section, which I may actually have a piece or two floating around in here. So I cut a little section here, and what I do is I take this little section and I'll drill a hole right into the end of the Durlin here. That's just a smaller by maybe a millimeter or two, 1.5 millimeters or so than the actual outer diameter of this end here. And what I do is I take the Durlin, and when it has a hole in it, What I do is I take it and I drill the hole down into it, and then the next problem is Durlin does not adhere well to steel. And so obviously even having any of these little grooves and all these little areas for just to be able to catch into, I really didn't find it was going to be, you know, very sturdy. So what I actually do is I take one of these type picks here, and one similar like this one here. I have several of them that are disposed of now, and I just bend the end and I make a very small L on the end there, just a small right angle, small piece coming off. What I do is I heat it. I heat the end of this rod here until it's nice and red hot, and I do it repeatedly. And what I do is when I have the hole down in here I've drilled, I take this and I stick it down in that hole, and I just go around inside of it, and I press this thing, let it melt down into the surface on the inside of it there, and I basically just go around making a bunch of anchoring holes on the inside of this. Okay, now once I've done that, then what I do is I take epoxy. I take a nice slow setting epoxy. I've tried several different kinds. There's actually a gentleman that's on YouTube. He has a channel. It's called Project Farm. If anybody is not familiar with Project Farm channel, I strongly advise you go check him out. Basically, this guy is he's a non-sponsored guy. He buys all of his products himself, and he takes all these different home products, things that you would go off to buy off the shelves that you would use in your home projects or in your shop projects, and he tests all these different products against each other to kind of determine what's the best product. So if you're looking for good products and a way to kind of save yourself a little bit of money, he really narrows these things down with some really fantastic tests. I absolutely advise going to check out that. That's Project Farm YouTube channel. So anyway, so I kind of just selected around a few of the long setting epoxies that I've kind of gotten some references off of this gentleman here. And then what I do next is I take that hole there and I pack it full of a bunch of epoxy. And then what I do is I take, now you gotta remember this here is machined down. This is the old broken piece here, so it will look more like just a round with a hole in it now. So now that we have that established, what I do is I take it, and when it's packed with epoxy, and I set that on top of it. Note, be in mind that this is larger than the diameter of the hole that I have in there. So what I do is I set it down, I get me my small hammer here, I set it on my vise, and I very easily, without trying to warp any metal or anything, I just give it some nice taps while it's packed full of all that epoxy, and I just slowly, it takes a while because there's so much pressure behind it. I found out a couple times beating on these things that they would just blow apart. The Durlin actually will shatter when it is introduced to a lot of extremely high impact. So you have to be really mindful when you're doing that, when you're trying to, you know, tap this down in there. So, you know, I beat this thing down in there nice and slow. And once it gets down in there, it seats, and I let it sit. I let it sit for manufacturer's recommendations for curing, for a full curing, which to me is usually just going to be a full 24 hours. So that's what I'm doing there, giving it a full 24 hours. This is very interesting. So what I've done here is I've taken one of these old failed valves here that I've worked with in the past with this stuff here. And what I've done is I've actually taken a hammer and just given it a whack on the end there to seal on the Durlin and broken it off. And what it's done is it's given me some really good insight as to what's going on inside and the back end of this, because getting everything machined where it's nice and pretty and it's flush and everything seats really well in as far as like on the seal material itself isn't really the biggest hurdle for me. It's really just getting this to adhere to this while still being able to machine really close around that valve, because you really want to be able to get fine-tuned really close around that, especially when you're talking about what's seating on the face of that valve. So I've given it a whack. I've broken a couple of these things open, and it's actually really great to be able to look inside of this. So like with this one here, and maybe you'll be able to tell there, you'll see actually some of the parts, this is actually fully encased in epoxy. It is completely adhered around the steel, and so you can see it completely fills, it packs in, it fills all the grooves inside of there really well. And if you notice all the little anchors that are sticking off, when I rotate it around here, you see these little knobs that are just kind of sticking off. And obviously some of these have shattered and broke off when I beat it with the hammer, but that's really great to see. And also what I noticed too Maybe if I get some good light here for you. So, if you actually look at this, what you'll notice is that right in here, right above my thumb there, that small area is the area on the stem here in the center that I actually have the grooves notched into to keep that from kind of spinning a little bit. Now keep in mind, this is the old valve stem, so they look a lot better than this. I've come a long ways with my design. I have one in the chuck right now that we're going to show you. But just kind of getting around to that, what I've actually noticed that's from, it's not actually from beating it down in there and it's sitting. What that's actually from is from when I get it on the lathe after I've let it cure and sit for so long. And then I get it on the lathe. What I've noticed is that when I get the machining this Durlin, these acetol rods, the acetol will actually start to heat up, and you got to kind of pay attention to it. And I've made a couple mistakes off of this as well in the beginning. When I started machining it, I'll notice that the acetol rods will actually start to heat up as it's being machined on there, and they will get pretty daggone hot. I've stuck temperature up to it, and it's getting up there like right over like 110 degrees and stuff, so it's getting like right nice and hot. And what that's actually doing is that heat is just soaking in down into that Durlin plastic, and it's making its way right around to all that epoxy and that steel in there, and it's kind of just heating it up just enough that it's grabbing the surface of that epoxy and that Durlin, and I think that that's kind of just heating itself around and just kind of locking that extra bond to it. So I think that's been my absolute best attempts and my best successes so far. I do have a couple of these valves and a couple of my air guns that I actively am using. Like I made one a month back that has been, it's been just over a month now with the Crawl MPO3 that I have laying right over here that has the valve, one of these valves that I've made in here, these valve stems here. So far everything has worked really well. So what I really want to talk about, and the reason why I'm really fond of this and why I just like immediately kind of just latched onto this, is because it is, like I said, it can be a little stubborn at that lower PSI trying to get that to seat. But if you can really get your machining right, like I said, you can just take your time with it and get it nice and pretty. The molecules of this plastic here, they have such great retention. What I mean by that is, like, when you finally do get them to seat and stuff, and you get your machining right, and it sits and it gets that pressure built behind it, and it presses against all that steel inside of the face of that valve, it really seats in there good. It really has that great memory where it molds just a little bit enough right around and just creates that great seal right around that steel inside of that valve, so that it just stays right there, but it won't go too far. It's not it's not a soft material, so it has that kind of that stopping point, you know, that yield point where it just goes and then it just stops forming, which is really great, because what I'm trying to say is it over time, but only to a certain period of time, slowly seats and seats very well after that. I think you have a great material. As well, the big thing here, which I keep blabbing on, I just want to go ahead and talk about this. It machines so well. I'm going to show you that right now. As a matter of fact, that's why I got you here. Just to kind of touch base on what I'm doing here, so everybody can kind of be up to date with what I got going on. So I got the Harbor Freight mini lathe right here. I got my GoPro right here. I'm going to snatch you guys down here. I'm going to cut this thing on, and we're going to go ahead and rip a run right here, and I'll let you guys see what I get to see kind of here firsthand. So yeah, this is my little setup here, and I just take it all off, and I can just slide it right up underneath it here, so it's right out of my way. It's why I have it clamped here. It just helps to keep it sturdy and everything. It is strapped down to the bench. Everything is nice here. I like my little setup. It's just my setup. I know it's amateur, but it is my setup. So anyways, we got it ready to rock and roll here. Cut my little light on here for you guys, and if you just take a look at this material and look real close at that, I mean, just look how absolutely smooth that material is after you machine that down. I mean, it absolutely just does a fantastic job with machining. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna get this turned on here, and I'm gonna cut this on, and we're gonna let this rip for one good run here, and you can just see how nice and smooth this stuff just machines so nicely. I like to get it up to a nice speed here. We got the auto feed on. We're just gonna let it rip a nice run here. All right, and just take a look at this. Look how smooth that machine's right there. Just look how nice and smooth. I mean, I feel like the video does absolutely no justice because it's so incredibly smooth. It's almost zero imperfection there. I mean, it is absolutely smooth. And so it just is a great material. I highly recommend it, everybody. That's kind of the point of this video. I just want to point that out. I have a lot of people that are asking me, you know, where have I been? What have I been doing? What's going on? You know, they don't feel I'm placing videos out, I guess, as often as I was. So people ask what I got going on. And this is what I do here. I sit out here. Anytime I'm not busy with the kids and busy around the house and doing work and whatever else I got going on, I'm just sitting here turning up new ideas. So maybe this video can help somebody that's kind of just getting into this stuff and looking for good material, and maybe they got a simple setup and they're similar setup and they're just kind of getting into this and looking for something to do to kind of mess around. The Acetal Duralin rods, I highly recommend them. I'm going to do another video here in the future, very soon future, very near future, where I'm actually going to probably just do an entire valve stem machining and everything right here so everybody can see. I get a lot of people that are you know, they're like me, they want to really get into this thing and get into modifying and building, because ultimately that's my goal. FowlerAirguns will be FowlerAirguns. That's my absolute goal there, is to create an air gun that people will absolutely love. And just to kind of throw this out there because it's kind of just something I feel that's pretty interesting. My last name is Fowler, and it's FowlerAirguns. That's why I chose, not just because it is my name and it's a representation of a family thing that my kids can carry on as well. But also, for anybody that may not know, a Fowler, very specifically by name and definition, is actually a bird hunter. And the very interesting thing about that is that all of my European descent and everything, any of my family has come from overseas. If you really trace back my heritage and stuff, there are a lot of huntsmen and stuff in my family. Actually, I have a very close relation to Edward Teach, pirates as well, so definitely very interesting. But yeah, so FowlerAirguns, bird hunting, shooting, it's in my blood. We love it over here. We love tinkering, we love being in the shop, just having a good time. I really want you guys to just ask questions, comments, you know, whatever you guys got out there. People want to ask me questions, want to see me do things, and please just leave a comment below and get to it, and we can just try to get things rolling. Hey, if you guys like my videos, make sure you guys hit like, make sure you subscribe below to follow me for more. And as always, guys, we'll see you next time.